Hi, Liam. Welcome
Hi,
to
boys.
the Drake Machine podcast. We're very honoured, really, to have you with us. I've heard a lot about you from other people already. You have a fantastic name called From Dealer to Healer, which is very catchy. And I like that. Now, what we want to do is get back into that past story, if you like, find out a little bit about you, and basically how your life got turned upside down and sent you on this fantastic spiritual journey and all these amazing things that you're doing today and reaching out and helping people. So
Yeah.
obviously you're doing fantastic stuff, but obviously it must have not always been like that. It must have been a very different story.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, just growing up in a normal sort of working class family, broken home, around domestic violence, psychological violence, not having any positive male role models in my life, not really having, although I had some amazing women in my life, no positive female role models. That were in the power. Do you know what I mean? No powerful females, a kind of downtrodden female, but a very loving, beautiful, mother that I had, which was a total blessing. But also now where I'm at, I know she was never in a power. So it's never being around a powerful feminine, never having positive male role models. And then, just growing up in council estate, growing up with these broken homes around of other kids with broken homes, kind of, then becoming a lager drinking, drug taking, just wanting to get off my face all the time. And to then just kind of go through this process of hitting rock bottom. But I guess we'll get more into that as we go into the story. But it was kind of like growing up in Manchester, South Manchester, just with this inner anger. Or, my mum died in 2007, and that was a pivotal point in my evolution, really. And when I look back now, I know that was the best thing that ever happened to my life, but the worst thing that ever happened to my life at the same time. Because that's what made me have all these inner thoughts and musings about where she was and energy and the way I was living. Because when she lived in Manchester and I lived in London, she didn't know what I was up to. When she died, I was like, what the fuck if she can see what I'm up to now? Do you know what I mean? And I'm being a little shit, and she wouldn't be happy with the way I was living, because I love my mum more than anybody on the planet all put together. And it was just kind of these sort of internal musings of wanting to make her proud, and all the emotion and all the things that her death brought up. So yeah, it was just kind of like that was one of the most pivotal parts, really. And other moments throughout that evolution of being a kid, being a football mad kid growing up in Manchester, to sort of, getting into the drug scene, the party scene, and then kind of getting more into the spiritual, the yoga. But that all came from a massive dive into depression and wanting to commit suicide for a long time.
So Liam, if we just go back a little bit, then. So first of all, are we talking red or blue of Manchester?
Blue, fortunately. Now it was shit when I was a kid. When I was a kid growing up, it was awful. But now it's good. And yesterday was a good day.
I used to like Flitcroft and all the others back in the day. I remember when they were shit. But what's it called? So, but obviously, I take it in high school you would have got around certain peer groups, social groups, which have took you off on a negative way, or spiraled into the drink and the drugs.
I guess it's kind of seen as a negative way, but it wasn't seen as negative then. It was just the way we lived. I grew up playing football, and then when you became 16, you started drinking with all the lads. You played football. It was a very racist, xenophobic, homophobic environment. But until you branch out of that, you don't realize any of them things, because that's how it is. Until because I got into acting at about 13, 14, and I was around more kind of like guys who were openly gay, or so it was kind of then going, well, actually, these are nice people that I'm dealing with, and then I'm hearing this homophobic attitude and racist attitude, and it was like, oh, it's not all. And then I started traveling, and loads of things just weren't lining up from the way I'd been brought up. But until you branch out of that, it's the way things are.
Yeah.
We're all a circumstance of our surroundings at the end of the day.
100%. So, but in terms of your social surroundings in the Manchester area and the football and the drinking, how did that continue? How far down the road did that spiral?
Well, that was probably till I was about. I moved to London when I was 21, and then it was actually I've not talked about this for a while, but what a pivotal thing was, I tried out for the uni football team and got picked onto the first team, and then I was just like, do you know what? I want to broaden my horizons, and I wanted to like party and be around more artistic people, be around more women, and I decided not to play for the uni team. Right. So football being the driving force behind my life up until that point, I then kind of ditched it. And I still played a little bit of five-a-side, and I still kept very fit and went to the gym. But football wasn't my be-all and end-all. It was, I wanted to go out all weekend and party and do. When I moved to London, drugs became the predominant thing.
All right.
Ecstasy, going to drum and bass raves. Yeah. That's when I started dealing drugs when I moved to London, because it was like I was around all these kids and I was like, well, I can get these things that you're all buying for really cheap where I live, because we'd always paid buttons for them. Do you know what I mean? Growing up, and I was like, oh. So then I just started getting some people stuff, and then that kind of spiraled to me making a lot of money when I was at university, which was, it wasn't my intention. It was just
one thing leads to another, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just, well, where I come from, this is really accessible and easy and cheap, and where I'm living now, it's not. So why don't I be the guy who makes everybody dance?
Yeah, no. So, but how long? I mean, how much of a role did that play in your life back in the day? Then, I mean, I know obviously you've got this title, dealer to healer. Did it spiral into a point where you were actually dealing like on levels what what we would class as a gangster like level?
No. I always kept myself under the radar of any of that shit. I didn't want to get into any of that. That wasn't, I've got mates who are into that. I've got a couple of mates doing 21 stretches, and I could have easily got into where they were going or worked with them. Do you know what I mean? And even after my spiritual awakening, the universe still created these opportunities in those worlds, and I was just like, nah, I don't want anything to do with it. And actually, in hindsight, even like a guy I was living with when I moved back to Manchester, who's an amazing human being, love him to bits. He's inside for 21 years, but actually him going inside, showing him his life's purpose, because he's now doing art, he's teaching art, and he's become this different person from going and having that time to focus on a passion that he didn't even know he had. Do you know what I mean? So I was always under that radar of gangster. Look at the size of me, man. I fucking I'm unless I went to the gym a lot, and it's kind of not in my name. Growing up in Wythenshawe and around them places, there was violence and stuff, but it wasn't really. I liked to scrap when I was a kid, but it wasn't like what I was kind of wanting to focus on. So it was just kind of like making money, but under the radar of upsetting anybody.
Okay. Yeah. So it wasn't Breaking Bad level.
No, was it? Fuck no. Well, I'll tell you what is, mate. The cacao is now, bro. The cacao's Breaking Bad level. But no fucker's gonna knock on my door. Do you know what I mean?
It's all above board and legal.
It's all good. If the government knew what I was planning to do, they would shut me down.
Yeah. Right. Well, they don't want that positivity going out there, do they? Let's be honest.
Exactly. But they can't, because then they'd have to shut down all the chocolate industries and.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely get into that in a bit.
Yeah, because that's a big part of the story later on. So we need to. Let's call that. So in terms of your own age, so you would have been in London early 20s, and obviously you're around this rave scene and partying scene.
Yeah, so it was kind of like when I lived in Manchester. Me and my mates. it was weird because it was kind of, we got into like taking pills and stuff when we started driving, because it was like, well, whoever's driving can take pills, you know, and it was like everyone else could get drunk. It was just, that was just the logical way of operating on nights out. And then when I moved to Manchester, when I moved to London, it became very much, you go out late at night, take Class A drugs, not really drink, and stay out till 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock the next day in the morning. Do you know what I mean? So it was very like a lot of drum and bass, a lot of raves at university. So it was like midweek going out as well, and then kind of trying to go out the whole weekend. But then being around more sort of people who were into music, a lot of artists, whereas I'd never been around that in Manchester. It was just like lads who went to work, had trades. Do you know what I mean? It was never this kind of creative, and just having different conversations and stuff. And yeah, and you know, I'd come out of clubs with a grand in my pocket, which was always good.
Always good. Up until that point, though, Liam. So growing up, and then obviously we can talk about obviously while you were taking drugs. Did you have any feelings of feeling different, or did a calling, if you like? Because I know sometimes people at a very, even when you're a kid and you don't understand why, they talk about having this feeling of being different, or they're here for a more bigger purpose. Is that something you could relate to as well?
100%. I always thought, I think that's why there was part of me that wanted to be an actor, because I thought there was something bigger for me. Do you know what I mean? On my journey.
Yeah.
So I think part of me went into acting because it was like, oh, there's something big for me to do in this world, but I just didn't quite know how to channel it or what it was. And there was like leadership qualities that I had, that, you know, being captains of football teams and stuff like that. And but yeah, I always felt there was something bigger that I was chasing, or that I needed to do. And I think a lot of kind of depression come from that as well, by going, well, what the fuck am I here for? Why are things not taking off? Why am I not this successful actor by now? You know, I'd had little breakthroughs and stuff, but it was kind of like, yeah, it was just, yeah, there was always something in me that knew, you know, when I was a kid, I thought, I was like, what the fuck am I doing with all these people? I'm a king. Do you know what I mean? With my family, I'm like, what's going? It was weird. I don't know where that come from. It's not like an ego thing. But, hey,
have you had a past life regression? You might have been a king.
100%. I've had quite a lot of past life regressions and cosmic readings and stuff. And they said in a lot of my past lives, I was like the medicine man, or the like leader of a community. Like I had this Aboriginal one where I had 9 wives, and people go, oh, but that was normal if you were successful in an Aboriginal, in those communities. If you were successful and a leader, you could support more women. So the more you had as many wives as you could support. And because that was normal, then it wasn't like they were all bitching with each other. That was your community. So yeah, I think maybe going back into that was where I come. And I think that's why I've always been a bit, the way we're living's not right. You know, we need to live in more communities. We need to support each other, and from traveling as well and seeing different ways of living and going, well, what's going on in England? What's going on in America? Why is it so disconnected when it should be connected? You know what I mean? So
I think it's very interesting, Liam, that your journey is taking you to this point where you are building community. You know, because what's going on in the world right now, there's a lot of people who are awake to what's happening in the world, are finding themselves on a path right now. People know intrinsically inside there is a purpose, you know, and whatever journeys we've been on are leading us to this very point, it feels to me. So, yeah, what you're saying there, the fact that you were the king and you knew something was there, that's a major part to play, where you were going through your journey to now leading what you're doing now.
Yeah, and now it all seems to sort of make sense. I can see where it's all going, and I can see that kind of like end goal. And as me being like learning, you know, I'm happy for everything that's happened in my life, because it's been the perfect training for what I'm doing now. So it's totally the greatest apprenticeship that I could have planned to be doing what I'm doing. So it's a total blessing. But like you're saying about people kind of finding the paths and finding a purpose in the last few years, that's why I say to people, don't be bitching about the government and don't be bitching about what's been going on the last couple of years, because it's perfect. It's waking people up. It's getting people off their asses. It's getting people doing what they've been talking about for 10 years, but they've not had that rocket up their ass to do it. And the explosion of what's happened the last few years has given them that. So it's like, it's a blessing then. So be grateful for it, because it's got you off your fucking ass.
We're lifting of the veil, isn't it? We're in
100%, yeah.
And yeah, I agree. Everything's divine. I know, you know, no matter what pain you go through, everything is divine.
Yeah, totally. And it's just enjoy the show, enjoy the process. Don't get attached to the things that, you know, don't let things affect your vibration. Just be aware. You can be aware of them, but don't let them affect your internal workings. You're responsible for your vibration. Nothing else, no one else. It's just you.
I agree.
So if we just go back to then when obviously you're still in your your early 20s and you're enjoying yourself and you're in the music scene and all the rest of it, and obviously you're taking whatever, but when do you think you had your first, what would you want to class as a spiritual experience that made you think, what the fuck?
I think it was I was traveling in the summer. Me and my mates had finished uni and we'd go to this festival called Benicassim in Spain, and I'd drive a load of drugs over there, sell shitloads of drugs, make a fucking shitload of money, and then me and my girlfriend would drive around Europe for the rest of the summer with, you know, just having a good time. And we were in Prague, and in Prague there was an exhibition just on the streets by this photographer called János Butrand, who's this French photographer, and it's Earth from above, and he takes these shots of different places on Earth from helicopters, and it was all about kind of climate change, sustainability, and the way humans were treating the Earth. And it really struck me. So I had kind of like, when I look back, I know it was kind of a spiritual awakening in terms of like, what the fuck are we doing to the planet? You know, I don't believe in all the climate change bullshit that's been, if it's in the mainstream, it's fucking bullshit. But I believe in environmentalism, and I believe in making sure you know, in yogic philosophy, there's Saucha, which is the first of the niyamas, and that is make sure your house is clean. Yeah. And as a human society, a global society, our house isn't clean. You know what I mean? It's like, make sure everything we're using is in alignment and, you know, beautiful, and we're not, you know, every river on the planet should be drinkable, swimmable. Yeah. Definitely. So it actually gave me the climate change awakening, and it's only the last sort of 6 or 7 years I've realized that was bullshit, but I realized that the environmental movement was really important. And then, so from seeing that exhibition, going back to university, and then having a module in sustainability when I went back to uni for my last year, that kind of all fell into place, and it became almost like this activist in that world. So that was a big change for me, where I was becoming conscious and having morals and ethics. So that was probably the first little, when I look back, awakening in a way.
Right.
Very good.
So did you get involved with all the activism scenes and you know, the protesting scenes, or did that come across your life? Or
no, not massively, because I went to a few and I thought it was just a joke, because they'd do some good stuff at the beginning, then everyone would get pissed and have a fight, and it was like, no one's got to fucking take you seriously. And that's what happens at most protests all the time, and I'm like, that's why I don't really go to them, because the vibe's off. It's like, you ain't, and I'm not. What most protests are doing is focusing on what they don't want. I'm about focusing on what I want.
Exactly. Yeah, the reality you want to create.
No, that's right. So after obviously you've been traveling around Europe and Prague, and you've had this sort of, you know, the environmental thing has resonated with you.
Yeah.
So which direction has that taken your life on from there?
Well, that's kind of just being more conscious in that world and wanting to learn more, wanting to educate people, working for a couple of charities. But then the year later, I've actually wanted to go to India. I'd always wanted to go. I just had this thing about going to India since I was a little kid, and I never quite understood it. because nobody that I knew had gone to India. And I'd been talking to a hairdresser that I had in London. Her brother had been, and he'd started doing yoga, and I was very, very interested. So at the end of my second year at uni, I was like, right, I'm going to go to India. And then when I looked at the prices, it was cheaper for me to get a round the world ticket. So I had one of my best mates that I grew up with in Manchester was living in Miami. I think I had a mate living in LA and then a mate living in New Zealand. So I went Miami, LA, Fiji, New Zealand, and then India was the last bit. So when I got to New Zealand, that's when I find out that my mum's got cancer. And after a week or so of my stepdad telling me that what was going on, I got the phone call that said, she's in hospital, you need to come home. Right. It's not good. So that's when fucking couldn't have been any further away from Manchester. On this planet anyway. So that's, that fucking destroyed me. If you read my book, there's very, people cry a lot to that section of my book. And in New Zealand, it was like a bank holiday or something. I couldn't get out of the country. So it took me a few days to get out of the country and get home. And then I went back to my mum, and then she had think about, and I didn't go to India. And the whole purpose of the trip was to go to India, but I now realise that the time wasn't right for me to go to India, and to go home to my mum and be around my mum. Not that I thought she was going to pass. It was everyone seemed pretty confident that she was going to get through it. She had the chemo and everything, and then I think it was the 17th of September, she died, and I was there when she died. We were in the hospital, and that's kind of how the whole spiritual journey began, really, due to the depression.
I'll just jump in there, Liam, because you could probably argue that's very a traumatic period in your life there. What probably started off as a fantastic adventure going around the world, which would have been one of the happiest, not many people get to do that. So that would have been an absolute fantastic adventure and journey, to then suddenly get a phone call to say, look, you need to come back home, mom's not well. And then obviously to come back home, and then obviously your mum's got cancer. So did you say that was around about 2007?
2007 that was, 2007, because I was that September I started my last year at uni, and I graduated in 2008, which was the following June. So 2007.
I only asked because between 2007 and 2009, I know from my own experience, but also when I speak to many people, we always seem to come back to this period where people went through a very traumatic experience, almost your first wake up, motherfucker, that kind of thing, right? Now, I remember when sort of stuff happened to me, and then I trying to get my head around it all, and I had people come around me and said, look, you're waking up now because in the future you're going to be helping communities. Right? You're going to be. Now, I used to laugh because they used to say, "Oh, you'll be a teacher." And listen, it couldn't be anything further from the fucking truth. But it's easy to look back now and say, "Whoa, what they told me back then makes sense."
It was on the money.
But the thing is, if you wouldn't have gone through your awakening and your trauma and your experience then, all the people who are going through it in the last 2 years now are probably reaching out saying, who the fuck can I talk to? None of this makes any sense. And then it's like, I know someone, Liam. How do you already know all this stuff, Liam? And you're like, because I had a fucking awakening 15 years ago. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost
and there was no fucker around to go to then. Do you know what I mean?
And so you'll know, because like me, we've had to do the old crazy shit on our own and sort of go through it all. And so for the last 15 years, it's almost like you've been waiting for everybody to, I'm here, motherfuckers. You know what I mean? It's like,
and I think on that 15 years has been gathering your tools, really, gathering everything you've needed to You know, I don't like using the word help. I like using the word support, inspire, support, inspire. And there's another one. I can't. My brain. I've got a bit of a cold at the moment, so my brain's not working. But support and inspire and empower. You know, support, inspire, empower. Because I feel like helping is basically wiping someone's ass for him, and I'm not here to do that. You have to wipe your own ass. It's like, if you want, you know, I can support, inspire, and empower you, but I ain't helping you.
I get that, but also as well, Liam. So I you know, I can guarantee over those last 15 years, you would have gone down many avenues, learning many different things as well as experiences. But you would have also had a first-hand account of the bullshit. The people who are doing it for the wrong reasons, the liars, and I don't, because sometimes people get lost in it all, don't they? Right? Yeah. You know, they might just start off saying like, "Oh, I want to get into, say, I don't know, Reiki or something," and then before they know it, they're thinking, you know, "Ching ching, how can I turn this into a loop?" And they lose a little bit. You know, it's not always bad as well, because I understand, you know, people have to pay the bills and everything else at the end of the day.
Totally,
but the thing is, you'll know yourself, there's a lot of people out there who you would say, are you really doing it for the right reasons? Are you helping people? Are you supposed to be? I don't know.
But I think what, you know, for me and a few of my mates, when the whole COVID thing hit in 2020, we thought that everybody that was a yoga teacher, a breath worker, that was on this spiritual path knew that it was bullshit. Do you know what I mean? And we were like, what? That fucker's wearing a mask. They're a breath worker. Do you know what I mean? And we were like, oh shit. And it was beautiful because it showed you who was who. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, okay, right. Now I can find my community. Now I can find my people. Luckily, my business partner, she got it. Do you know what I mean? I was like, oh, thank fuck, because there must be so many relationships out there where one fucker gets it and the other doesn't, and they're like, oh.
Many.
Because ultimately as well, I mean, people, like, if people are not in these circles, they might have just looked at COVID and what was going on in the news, and they wouldn't realize that the fear that was being implemented was creating their reality. It could have even created, you know, basically thinking they've got whatever.
100%. Yeah.
Because people are not aware to the importance of energy and your vibrations and your frequencies, what you're on and all this kind of stuff. So they sort of get lost in that. What I wanted to mention as well was, when you mentioned, obviously, you lost your mom in 2007.
Yeah.
That would have been a bit of a like the trauma and a wake up. I remember speaking, or I was watching something a few weeks ago, and it was probably hard for people to understand, but from a human level. But if you looked at it from a soul level, where the person talked about, so basically it was a woman and she didn't know, but she was going to get cancer, and her dad died, and then he come through with a medium, and he said, I couldn't help you from this side of life. I had to cross over. I knew it was my time, so I can support you from the soul side. And I just thought, I know people, probably that's a bit deep for a lot of people to get, but I can also understand it as well. There's, you know what I mean? There's people have to play their roles on different ways.
Some fuckers trying to call me. As you said that, then my mum's energy just dropped in, and I got a whole vibration through my body, because that's exactly what it was. And my mum died for me to be able to do what I'm doing. No, I have a picture at every event I do. She's on my stall. She's on my stalls when I'm not there, and it's like, because her sacrifice, and it's all pre-planned. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's all beautiful, and that's why a lot of my teachings are just like, fuck. If someone dies, it's beautiful. They're free. You know what I mean? In this body, you're trapped. It's like you're stuck in a fucking Volvo, you know what I mean? With the limitations of a Volvo. And it's like, I'm just stuck in a human body with the limitations of a human, when I am cosmic divine energy with infinite possibility. That's my true nature. But I'm trapped in this physical existence for this period of time to do what I'm supposed to do, to create the best version of. So when someone passes, like you said, they can support you and be around you more and push you in the right direction from the other side, from spirit. Do you know what I mean? Because especially when they're that pivotal as like a parent or a spouse or, you know, whatever, a grandparent or someone you've been really close to, because your energy's already with them. And then when they go, you're like, they're fucking dead, but I still feel their energy. That's why when my mum died, I was like, there's something more to life. I was an atheist, do you know what I mean? I was reading books about atheism at the time and the bullshit of religion and how it was the bane of the world, and I still agree with that a lot, but I agree with the spiritual sense of like past lives, about this is just a holographic illusion that we're having and that we're all here, and to not take things seriously, enjoy every moment and do your best with what skills you've got. And these, you know, people say, oh, but I couldn't do that. There's genius within every single person who's incarnate on the planet.
100%.
Oh, definitely. 100%. Liam, did you go and see a psychic then around that point? Was that
so you know, when you were talking about 2007, 2009 and all that kind of period, that 2007 hit just spiraled me into depression, really. And it was like, you know, being northern, I was like, oh, fuck, is something southerners get and go and see a fucking counsellor. It's like, northerners don't get this. And it was destroying me. But it wasn't really until 2011 when I got arrested that I then started doing the 12 steps to recovery to make sure that I didn't go to prison, which was just it was just a blag, really. But actually, now looking back, me doing the 12 steps was another massive moment on my path of awakening to cognition of the brain and cognition of how I behave. What energy I put out, I get back. You know, I was always on the skank. I was always on a fiddle. I was always blagging the train. I was always blagging everything. And it really put me into alignment going to these meetings and dragged me into center. And, you know, getting down on my knees and praying to God every day was fucking horrific at first. I was like, what a dickhead. But, you know, and then I started testing it and going, well, when I don't do that, I don't feel that my day's not as good. So if I do it, my day's a little bit better. And this was when I wanted to kill myself every day for a long time. It'd been a long time where I was just wasn't sleeping, suicidal thoughts. I'd done nothing good with my past. The present was fucked, and there was nothing positive in my future. Just a washing machine of thoughts. And this 12 steps, although I was still in this deep depression and suicide, it started just making me have a little bit of an awareness of energy, of how I behaved. I stopped stealing. I stopped doing my blags. Everything was kind of coming more into like alignment. And when I look back now, because I'm a yoga teacher, they're very similar to the yamas and niyamas, the 12 steps of recovery. But then when I went to court and got found guilty, I thought I was going to go to prison for at least like at the minimum a year, but my barrister was like, you probably do 3. And I ended up getting 150 hours community service and a non-suspended sentence, which was fucking incredible. Like, no one believed that was going to happen. And that evening that I got sentenced, I had a film premiering at the London Film Festival. So I was like, I'm either going to be in prison for the first night, getting to know a cellmate who might bum me, or I'm going to have to go to an equally as uncomfortable situation, because at the time I was depressed and suicidal, to pretend that I'm a confident actor, to speak to press, to get on stage and do a Q&A, when inside I'm fucking dying. You know what I mean?
So the dry bumming was probably
the
better option.
Dry
bumming was probably the better option, really.
Well, I probably would have made it. I probably would have spat down there beforehand just to make sure it wasn't. Thank God a moment.
So, is it fair to say, Liam? Obviously, the death of your mom was the catalyst for the spiral of the depression. You never suffered with depression before that?
No, I'd never really thought about it. It was just when my mum was alive, I think having your mum there just makes you like invincible in a way. You know what I mean? It was like, well, if anything fucks up, my mum will look after me.
I think it's a backup support network, isn't it, really? Yeah.
She was me everything, man. Like, you know what I mean? We lived in a Battered Wives Institute together. We lived in a council house together. It was just like that. She was the only, you know, I even, there's this concept of people talking about their kids dying and how that's the worst thing that you can ever imagine. But the thing is, when your parent dies, you've not known any part of your life without that human being. Whereas if you're an adult with a child, you've known life without that child.
Yeah, it's a way of looking at it, mate.
So there's kind of like, but I was always trying to find the positive, and it was like, it would have destroyed me mum to see me die.
Yeah.
And then I knew when I was not in a good place, and when I was suicidal and I was drug dealing and womanizing and being a little twat, when she was dead, I would realize my mum would not be happy with the way I am behaving. So I need to look at ways to be better as a human, as a man. You know what I mean? I was a boy. I was a little boy.
And that in itself, Liam, you know, sometimes you have to give yourself great credit, or if it, you know, maybe it's nice to hear someone else give you credit, because it's very easy for people to go down these wrong tracks and they never get back off them, if you like. The life just spirals, you know, and then they sort of repeat the pattern. They get into abusive relationships, then their kids are brought up in this negative environment. So the fact that you've been brought up in this toxic social environment and you've managed to, you know, through the trauma, break yourself from it, that's credit to yourself, and fantastic for doing that.
I think it's just a good reference point to just say any person can do it. Anyone can do it.
Yeah, but not many do. That's the
exactly. But I always say, people come to my ceremonies and I'm like, it's a choice away. Continue with your shit life or create a magnificent one. But whatever you do is not going to affect my life, because my life's good, you know. But as a whole vibration of the planet, it's going to be beneficial if you sort your shit out. But most magnificently, you're going to feel fucking amazing. You know what I mean? If you sort your shit out. It's like when people come to my yoga.
Because we sort of try and get the message across, because as much as we sort of want to put information out there to help people on the Drake Michigan platform and that, ultimately the change will only come down to the individual. It will be the individual, like, and you could probably testify to that. It has to be the person who says, I don't want this anymore, I'm going to change my life. You know, there's got to be more to it than, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
and that's why when people come to me and they say, I really want to help my partner, or my mum and dad aren't getting it, I was like, it's not your concern.
No, it's not.
It's not your concern. Your one mission on this planet is to be the best version of you. And if you're doing that and that doesn't inspire them, there's fuck all you can do about it. Great. So just let it go. A parigraha is the final yama, and that is non-attachment. Yeah. Just let it go.
Beautiful. Yeah, so if we just go back then, so did you end up at the open evening of your show at the film?
Yeah.
Did you
went there. Yeah, I'd give all my stuff to my dad. I'd moved out of my flat, and went to the opening night of it. But then it was just kind of like, I just wanted to get out of London. London's an energy fucking vampire. I wasn't happy. And I ended up sort of blagging it to do my community service back in Manchester, and then was just kind of like couch surfing for a little bit, and then somehow ended up moving back in with my stepdad and my sister, and me and my stepdad couldn't stand each other, but that was the only place that felt like, that was my mum's house, do you know what I mean? It was like, it was the only place that felt like home on the planet. Whereas my dad's couch, my dad's place, wherever my dad's been's never felt like home. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But that house, for some reason, felt like home, and it was a bit of solace, actually, even though it was difficult. But when you then look back at what the universe was at play, my friend who I'd grew up with had moved back in with her mum and dad, and we used to chat through our windows to each other when we were growing up. And she'd just split with her boyfriend. She was drug addict, and she was starting to see angels and demons. And I'm like, I'd committed after the 12 steps to not having a spiritual awakening. I ain't wearing no fucking tie-dye shit and having that as my life. Yeah. I was like, I've got all the other stuff, I'll try and keep at that, but I ain't having a fucking spiritual awakening. I'm not ringing someone every day, you know, to say I'm an addict, and to, you know, it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted to go back to my old life in a way, but my old life had gone, and it was just like I was just trying to figure out where I was. So moving back to Manchester, I always had means of making money in Manchester, working on building sites, working with my mate doing tree surgery, painting and decorating is what my dad and my brother did, and is what I grew up doing. So from the age of 12, I had all them skills, so I could always make money, you know, grafting. So moved back to Manchester, started doing that. And Catherine over the road, who she'd moved back in with her mum and dad, we kind of like, after me getting over the fact that I thought she'd losing the fucking plot because she was talking about angels and demons, and she had legions all over her face because of the drugs, we then went on this spiritual awakening together after me being not committed to not having one. And that was the start of 2012. And we then just, you know, we thought we were the only people in the UK who were into this, that were spiritual. We thought we're probably going to have to go to California because it seems like there's loads of spiritual people there. And then as we started to uncover it, it was everywhere around us. There was healing groups, there was healing sessions, there was spiritual meditations, you know what I mean? There was all these things, and we were like just exploring. I'm really eager. And we met this woman who became one of our teachers called Janet Farnell. And like you said a minute ago, this was in the start of 2012, and she went, "You two are young and you're on a fast track, and spirit want you to get ready because there's a lot of people that are gonna need you in the coming years." And I'm like, fucking dickhead, this woman's full of shit. And Catherine's like all lit up, yeah, and she's like, "You need to do your healing courses." I was like, she's trying to sell us a fucking healing course. Catherine's like, yeah. And so we do our healing course, and this woman's like, "You both going to be able to speak light languages. You're going to both be able to do this." And this is the messages she's getting through from spirit. Again, I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing here, man? Like, I've got all these cool mates in London, and I'm here with an old lady in a fucking house in Reddish. And then, you know, and then we did the healing course, and I was like, whoa, there's something in this, because there's some weird energies and shit that's moving that my logical mind is not comprehending. There's something in this. And and that was the catalyst. We started going to all these things. We did our level 1, we did our level 2, and I was still embarrassed about it, shy about it, not telling many people what I was up to. But I got really, I'd never got into something properly before. And I was into this, and I was reading all the books. I was reading all the prophecies about the end of the Mayan calendar. I was reading about, you know, the Celestine prophecies. I was reading about what had been hidden from us. And I was like, fuck, there's so much. Everything I know is bullshit. You know, I was like, what the fuck? This is like hard to take. And then synchronicity after synchronicity. Then what you were talking about, going to a psychic. Yeah, I went to the psychic. The psychic's like, "I've got your grandma here," and she's saying, "Why have you not booked on the course that you've been wanting to do for ages?" And I'm like, what? And I'm thinking, well, it's not very spiritual. It was a earthship building, so which are off-grid sustainable houses. And I'd been into them for quite a few years and followed the guy, followed the community and stuff. And I was like, okay. So I went home and I booked on that course that night. And it was like, I was on the dole at the time. I was earning a little bit of money working. But I was like, right, okay, if I want to go on this trip, if I want to do this course, I need to focus on making some money. So me and Catherine, on the way back from one of these healing courses, I was like, right, I'm committing to this now. I'm going to crack on and make sure I've got $8,000 in the bank before, or is it $5,000 or $8,000 before I go? I think it was $5,000 in the bank, but another $3,000 to pay for everything that I needed to do. I was like, right, I'm just going to graft. And from that moment, I had enough work for about 3 or 4 of me. And I was just constantly, I blagged myself as a job as an events manager. And I had all these people like working under me. And I was like, I'd never done anything like that before. I just blagged it, and I was getting paid shitloads of money. I did a couple of videos for the Stereophonics where I got paid really well. And everything just lined up. Met this woman called Ladan, and she was at one of these past life regression weekends, actually. And me and Catherine had always had a car. And this weekend, the car was in the garage, and we'd end up, I think we got a taxi there or a bus there. And we said, oh, is there anybody that could possibly give us a lift back, because that's going that way? And this lady, Ladan, gave us a lift back. And she drops us off in Gatley train station car park, and Catherine gets out. And I was like, oh, can I just have a chat with you? I was like, where do you live? And she's like, oh, I live in Hazel Grove. I was like, that's not on the way. She was like, yeah, but I thought I'd give you guys a lift back. And I was like, okay, cool. And then we started chatting, and it turns out she has a an advanced spiritual meditation on a Wednesday night in Gatley. She went, I think you'd be ready for it. I'm not advanced. She went, yeah, but you're on the path. You're young, and Spirit's telling me you should be there. I was like, okay, I'll start coming. And she was like, oh, also, she went, we're doing a pilgrimage in Guatemala for the end of the Mayan calendar. And I was like, fuck, I just started reading about this shit. Like, this is a 5,600-year-old calendar that doesn't come around many lifetimes. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, instantly, I was like, I need to go there. And then a couple of days later, I realized Earthship have a build in Guatemala which counts towards your accreditation for the course that I was doing. So I was like, oh, fuck, right, okay, I'll do that. I'll go on the spiritual pilgrimage. I'll travel for a bit with my girlfriend, go on the spiritual pilgrimage, go and build the house in Guatemala, travel overland to the US and do my course in Taos, New Mexico. And then I'll go to ayahuasca and drink. Then I'll go to Peru and drink ayahuasca, and hopefully my life will be sorted. So that was the plan, and that kind of all just fell into place. And you know, I remember leaving London to get on the plane to Belize, because we went and seen a lot of the crystal skull temples, Mayan temples, and I had, I think, £87 over £5,000 in my account at the time to go with, and I was like, this shit's real, man.
Wow, and you were really young, really, you know, and considering what you were going through then, you were young going through that. That's
well, yeah, it was 30. I think it was 30. So your Saturn's returns like from sort of 28 or 29 to 31, 32, isn't it? And that's when it all really kind of fucking hit me.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. It's interesting because obviously I was 20. I would have been 29. When you know, shit hit the fan, if you like, and all at me and everything else. And also when you look back now, like you're just telling that story then, but you might have not realized it at the time, but you would have been manifesting everything you wanted in your life, and things were just clicking into place. And like you said, you were just getting these jobs and blah blah blah. But what is actually is your energy in the universe and manifestation. You're creating all that. Then I don't know if later on in your life you got more into all that and learned all about, you know, the manifestation side. But I know from my own experience as well, I can look back and say, for fuck's sake, I was always a creator. I was always manifesting. I was always creating my reality. It's fantastic. Obviously, we're at a point now where we can look back and you know, and think, wow. But at the time, you probably wouldn't have realized that.
Yeah, and you realise when you were younger as well that you were manifesting a fucking chaos.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You know, but
some of that would have come from your first 7 years of life in this world, if you like, as well, and your social surrounding. So it's only natural, like, you know, you keep attracting these negative people into your life, negative situations, but that is because the energy that you were, you know, threw into when you've come onto this earth plane, if you like. So you've had to sort of battle through all that and then say, well, that no longer serves me. You know, I need to free myself from this fucking energy bullshit. Well, and then you start learning, like, I can have all the good stuff, because you might have had this as well. When you have sort of a troublesome upbringing as a kid, as you get into your 20s, you have these feelings of, I'm not worthy, or I'm not good enough, or maybe I don't deserve all the good stuff. So then you have to sort of learn, well, you do deserve everything, because why shouldn't you have everything?
Yeah, and because a lot of us come from this lack mentality, this scarcity of parents who were, you know, brought up with nothing. You know, they were in total poverty. So it's, you've got you're cleansing and purging so much shit, like people our age, you know, from our ancestors, from what we picked up from our childhood. And you know, I remember I was at an event last year. I think it was the Om Yoga show, and this like woman come up to me and she was like, told me she was a Catholic. So instantly I'm like, fucking hell, that's evil. And she's, you know, she said, you know, I said, this is a plant medicine, it's cacao. And she was like, what's wrong with all you younger generations who've got to do all these plant medicines and get off your heads? I was like, I said, because we've been getting fucking programmed since the day we were born with bullshit, toxicity, stuff that's not good for us. And if we go and sit in a cave in the Himalayas, it'll take us about 14 years to purge this shit. If we're going to change the planet instantly, we need to fucking get it out of ourselves as quickly as possible. And plant medicines are the path to be able to get this shit out of us quicker. Do you know what I mean? We ain't got time to go and sit in a fucking cave for 20 years, love. So it's like, let's purge.
And also as well, because obviously in the I don't want to say mainstream, but the sort of people throw in different alternative opinions out there now. So like a lot of people have done the ayahuasca, and it's helped, you know, with purging, and it's helped them really. And now suddenly we're getting this narrative where it could be negative and you shouldn't do it and all the rest of it. But is that because they're trying to stop people waking up, or, you know,
100%? That's, you know, that's what they can try and stop people waking up now. The fucking pendulum has swung, man. It's like, you know, the 60s movement that they just fucking destroyed because they bastardized drugs. They had all these campaigns about it, all these smear things. It was all bullshit. You know, it's the proof's there now that it was all bullshit, what they did about LSD. My thing is with plant medicines is that you don't need to do them all the time. You know, if you're doing ayahuasca more than 6 times a year, you've still got addictive traits and you're not dealing with your shit, because, you know, I've not done it for donkey's years and I don't feel called to do it because I feel like I got what I needed from it. It might call me at some other point, but there's a lot of people who go into ceremonies every week. It's like, Jesus Christ, man, like, you've got to process some of that stuff and you've got to take some positive action to improving your life rather than just like having this dependency again. You know what I mean? So it's like, whatever we're doing, have you got the power, and is this thing getting control over you again, or have you got control of it?
Would you look at ayahuasca as a very positive experience, and definitely you learn new stuff?
100%. The most fucking terrifying thing I've ever done in my life, but super positive, you know. Right. And if you're a shit house, you're gonna fucking smear it when you get out of it because you're a shit house. Yeah, and you can't deal with, like, it's so intense, like so intense, man. But if you can get over that and come back, it means he's fuck all in the world that is even scary, which is a superpower. If you've got nothing to be scared of in the world, you are one powerful motherfucker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we've spoke to a few people lately who have they've all done this mother ayahuasca and everything.
Yeah,
and there's links back to Peru with it and everything as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
But and a lot of them, the biggest hurdle is trusting and letting go with it, apparently. And just trusting Mother Nature, if you like. And is that would you agree with that?
Yeah, and when you're in it and it's what you would classify as not good, to just let it happen, to just to realize, it's that realization that it'll pass. Like everything in life, it'll pass. So it's, you know, it's 30,000 words about the ayahuasca experience in my book. You know, I go into a lot of detail. It was very, very, very traumatic. And I realized, looking back, it was a very pivotal moment in my life. It was very pivotal in terms of my creative expression as a creator, as an artist, as a, you know, music. It was pivotal in me being more confident in those realms. So, you know, for me, it's fucking priceless. But, you know, that's what I say. People are like, was it amazing? I'm like, yeah, but not in the way you're thinking it is.
yeah. But that would probably be a good time as well to just mention about your book, Liam. So is your book called Dealer to Healer?
It's, the full title is Dealer to Healer: A Modern Tale of a Fucked Up Male.
Right. Okay. And this the book, does it go all the way back from your childhood all the way to modern day, or is it a certain?
It goes. So the book finishes in the beginning of 2013 when I return from the Amazon.
Right.
So it's basically my travels for the end of the Mayan calendar, that whole experience, the mad ceremonies that I went to, the trippy shit that happened. But then I decided to intersperse it with pivotal events from life. So domestic violence, girls fucking being addicted to shagging everybody, lager, football, going to university, becoming a drug dealer, all these. So it's kind of like each chapter is either life event or traveling story, life event, traveling story. Just it intersperses as it goes along. And people say, "Oh, at first I was a bit all over the place, but then once I realised that it all kind of interwoven and made sense for each other." Do you know what I mean? It's like you're going on a journey. You're going on two journeys, really, which are the same journey.
Yeah.
Well, already just from speaking to you, it sounds like a fantastic book. I'm definitely going to order myself a copy because I want to know more.
I'll send you one, man. Just send me your address. I'll post you one.
Well, make sure you sign it just in case. So when you're famous, I can say I met him once.
100%.
So if that was 2013, we're 10 years later. So I take it we've got another 1 or 2 books in you.
There's another banging book. When I was thinking about it, like a few months ago, actually, someone said, "Are you going to write another?" I was like, that'd be an amazing book, because what's happened over the last 10 years has just been, there's been some massive ups and downs. But the last 3 years have just been fucking amazing. Like, so good. We need
to get that down on paper. You need another book.
Yeah, but it's just at the moment with the businesses and everything that's going on, it's just when do I get the time? And it'll happen. It'll happen. Me and my missus are moving to Wales at the moment.
Right.
We've bought a small holding, so there's got to be more opportunities for stuff. But it's just setting Full Power Cacao up and Stone Cold Sober up where it doesn't need my full attention. Do you know what I mean? All the time. I'm there and I'm leading it, but there's other people working it.
Especially, and I've found this as well. So, like, as we go forward on this journey, the right people, the right situations come around us. So you'll probably find while you're dealing with 10 different things, the book probably is even happening at the same time. The universe has an amazing way of bringing these amazing people just as you need them. Into our lives. But if we just go back to your story then, so because this would be a good time. So when you were out traveling and Peru and everything, is this when your first experience with the cacao?
Yeah, so I'd never heard of cacao.
No, it's new to me. I've got to be honest, mate. It's new to me.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. So it's new to a lot of people now. So I'm 11 years in,
Fantastic.
Which puts me in a very, very favorable position. And it's only over the last few years that I've realized that and realized my knowledge I'm one of the most knowledgeable people in the UK about cacao. And I'm one of the people in the UK who's been doing it for the longest amount of time. And there's a lot of people now just doing cacao ceremonies without having this depth of knowledge to it. And I'm always like, make sure you train a little bit and learn a little bit before you start teaching people, So yeah, the cacao, I was in Guatemala, and it was before I'd done the pilgrimage actually, and I was in this I'd had my missus had given me this rough guide to the Central America, and I'd read about this place called San Marcos, which is on Lake Atitlan, and Lake Atitlan is a lake, but it's actually a crater at the top of a volcano with 3 other volcanoes looking over it. So it's a pretty magical fucking spot. And I'd read about San Marcos, which is one of the little villages on the lake, as being like this sort of spiritual, holistic wellness hub of Guatemala. And I was like, oh, I'm going there. Do you know what I mean? It was like, that's the place I want to go. There was the other part of the lake where it was a party thing, and I'm done with that by this time. It's like, I'm not interested in partying. I was really focused on my spiritual path, and actually was that focused that I'd let go of some parts of me. I was like, I've got to take things a little bit more seriously. I can't be taking the piss and being funny and cracking jokes all the time. I've got to be focused on this now. And I was walking around this place, Lake Atitlan, and I was like, wow, this is like utopia. There's yoga everywhere, there's tantra, there's healing, there's massage, there's everything. There was moon courses, sun courses, there was silent retreats for passanas, and I was like, fucking hell, man, this is like amazing. It was like a bit like India, but very, very concentrated in the best bits of it. And I was just walking around this village one day, And in this village, Lake Island, I'd realised after a couple of days that if you're going somewhere, you have to give yourself at least half an hour extra, because every fucker wants to give you a hug. So you're hugging all these Western people everywhere you went. The Mayans don't hug you, but you're just hugging these Westerners, and it's not like, "Hey mate, you're right, nice to meet you." It's like, "Oh." I'm like, "Fucking what? This is weird as fuck. What's going on?" And some hot women hugging you, and you're like, "Oh my god, what's going on?" So I realised I had to take. And this day, I was just going for a walk up into one of the villages, and I met this kid, and he was like, "Oh, how, we've hugged," and he's like, "What are you doing? What are you interested in?" And I was like, "Oh, just trying to have things." And he was like, "Oh, you need to go and see the chocolate shaman." I was like, "The fucking what?" And he went, "The chocolate shaman. He's a cacao shaman. He does healing with chocolate." And I was like, "Fucking Willy Wonka's gonna heal me." I was like, I'm in this part of the world for ayahuasca, bro. I ain't here for chocolate. I was like, "What's this? Who's this dickhead take me for?" But anyway, my mission, me mantra on this journey was try everything. If I have to be a monk to find my purpose and my happiness, sweet, I'll do it. If I have to have a sex change to find my happiness, I'll do it. Whatever I've got to do to find a purpose and happiness, I'd give myself a limit of 3 years. Yeah, I was like, at this point, I was like, 3 years. If I've not found happiness and a purpose, I'm out of here. I'll kill myself 100%. I was committed to it. So I was like, right, go and check out this chocolate fucky shaman. It's going to be funny. Yeah. And then went and seen this guy. He's called Keith. He's brought back all the hidden history about cacao, and it's in all the hieroglyphs in all the temples. It was the cacao king, the cacao queen. It was pivotal part of the Inca civilization, the Mayan civilization, the Aztecs, the Olmecs. So it was really pivotal, and nobody really knew what they did with it. Why was it drank? Did they just drink it? And he'd kind of been visited by the spirit of cacao, of Lady Cacao, and she'd said to him, "You're the person who needs to go and bring this back. This is very, very important for the upgrade of humanity." So this was 30 years ago when he went on this journey and started figuring out what it was about. And so he's got some amazing stories, Keith. And I was just sat there going, "Wow, this is fucking interesting. All chocolate comes from cacao. I've never heard of cacao. Didn't know cacao grew on a tree. Didn't know there was beans inside a pod. And I've been eating chocolate since I was a kid." Again, inversion. Why don't I know this shit? Yeah. Why am I in an education system that's never fucking taught me this? Yeah. Why don't I know that it's a superfood in its rawest form? Why don't I know that all the chocolate that I've consumed is missing 99% of the active ingredients of the original source? Yeah. So I was just like, oh, fucking more bullshit. And then I just saw what Keith did. He had this little porch, and people would come and sit, and we'd drink a cacao, 50 grams ceremonial dose of Guatemalan Criollo ceremonial grade cacao. And we'd sit there for 5 hours, and I'd be like, well, I don't really feel in an altered state or out of it, but I've been sat here quite contentedly for 5 hours, which I wouldn't be in any other situation. So this cacao's doing something.
Yeah.
And then I saw the healing work that he did. I saw the shifts and changes in people that he did. I saw a calmness come to me, but there was all still an irritation and an anxiety and a depression and anger within me. So I just kept going, and I kept learning, and I kept turning up to his ceremonies. I had a couple of one-to-ones, and ended up going on my pilgrimage, and then bringing quite a few people who went on the pilgrimage back to this place. And I got a little job working in this hostel called La Paz, and I had my own little room. Ended up having this beautiful Spanish girlfriend, and actually on that trip, and a lot of those people have actually become pivotal parts in my journey after that. The meetings that I made, the contacts that I made, the people who have been a massive part of my journey, like the Spanish girl with the book, her mum. Well, I thought she was just this hippie Spanish girl, yeah, beautiful. She's called Maya. She's one of my best friends. She's my sister now. When you realize, when you have this connection with somebody, when you're 3D, you think it's sexual, yeah, but that was not what our connection was. Our connection was very spiritual, but we did that stupid thing of jumping in bed together. And I just thought she was this hippie girl. She'd come and visit. She was from San Sebastian in Spain, which is the Basque country, and she'd call it the best country because it sounded like that. We were like, she's from the best country. must be quite an amazing place. I've never heard of it. And then when I moved in with my mate, who is now doing 21 years, her Real Sociedad, which is the team of San Sebastian, were playing Man United in the Champions League. They'd never been in the Champions League before. She was like, "Can I come and stay with you?" I was like, yeah, come and stay. So she stayed. We had this good time, went to the game. Unfortunately, I think Real Sociedad might have got beat, or it might have been a draw. But it was amazing to be with her. And then she said, "Oh, you need to come and stay with us." And I, just think she's this hippie girl, and go there, and she's like a fucking princess. And her mum's got this massive apartment. It's totally bourgeois. They've got this apartment that there was their granddad's looking over the beach. And I'm like, what? This is like, imagine meeting somebody and they take you to like Pall Mall in London and they've got a massive apartment. And you're like, wow, I thought you was some hippie chick. What the fuck's going on here? You're some aristocratical shit. And anyway, it was the next time I went, and he went, "Oh, why don't you have Granddad's apartment and write your book there?" So I basically ended up doing a lot of the writing of my book in this £2 million apartment, looking over. It's called La Concha, which is the beach. And when I'd go out and have a drink in the day with people, and they'd ask me where I was staying, they were like, "What? You're staying there?" That's like the whole of San Sebastian is very bourgeois. They were like, "That is the most important postcode in San Sebastian." I was like, "Yeah, I'm staying there for free writing my book."
And this is the thing as well, because you couldn't write that shit, could you?
No, man.
There's just no way of, So,
and that's not even in that book. The book had already finished by this point, so that's what I mean about the next book's got to have all that shit in it, which is fucking boom, wild.
So just going back to Keith with the cacao. So did he show you like from the plant how to like grind it and how to make it and everything, or?
So it talked us through the processes of cacao. So basically what happens is cacao is just growing on all the cacao trees in Guatemala. Cacao grows 20 degrees either side of the equator. Anywhere in the world, it'll grow in them places. It's indigenous to Central South America. Grows in the jungle, in these very tropical climates, rainforest climates almost. And so the kids, the local indigenous kids, will just take the cacao pod off when it's ripe, and they just open it, eat the flesh, and then throw the beans on the floor. So they're basically throwing this gold on the floor, which is
all right.
But they don't have that connection to it because it's just so abundant. So when you actually harvest cacao, basically the ceremonial grade comes from the Criollo Porcelina. There's different strains, like coffee. There's shit coffee, and there's the creme, the fucking la creme. Same with cacao, because people have said, "Oh, I don't like it," and it's all different tasting. Depends where it's grown, depends the climate, depends the moisture, depends what trees are looking after it, because it has to have companion trees like protecting it from the elements. It's a very delicate tree. So what they'll do is the harvester or the farmer will cut it in half. In each pod there is 30 to 50 beans. They'll take the husk, take the outer skin of the cacao pod out, and they'll put the flesh and the beans in these crates. They'll bury the crates in the earth for 4 to 6 days. Fermentation process, the beans will start to turn brown. Take it off, wash the flesh off, and they put all the beans on these huge drying decks, leave them in the sun to dry out. They go even darker. And then what the women will do then, because they form this husk around the bean, they'll then really lightly heat it up and roast it, but for super short period of time. And that's just to allow that husk to come off the bean. So then when you've got your cacao bean, if you crush that, that's cacao nibs. Yeah? So that's all cacao nibs are. If you get that bean and put it in a presser, do you know, like when you go to a posh supermarket and you've got your peanuts and you turn that thing and it pushes it into peanut butter?
Yeah.
That's a presser. So the cacao gets pressed, and that's what activates the fats and the oils.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will heat that up at a minimum temperature. So Keith would get all that paste, and then we'd go onto his porch, and it'd be like a little fucking drug factory. I'm like, this is mad. So somebody would be heating the cacao up to the minimum temperature, so it still retains that raw title as a raw food. And then we'd pour them in 500 grams into these bags. Someone would seal the bags, and then these bags, which almost look like massive bags of heroin, would just sit on his bathroom floor to solidify again, to come back into. So then that's what gets imported, and then you would chop that up. My cacao, full power cacao, gets put into massive blocks, and then that blocks will get smashed up. And that's why we've got pieces that you can just take a tablespoon, put it into a pan, whisk it into a paste. Add with a little bit of oat milk, almond milk, whatever it is, plant milk. Don't use cow's milk because that's like pissing in your shoe before you put it on. It fucking defeats the object, because cow's milk's clogging the capillaries and the arteries around your heart. And also cacao being a nature spirit is like, yo, why are you stealing people's fucking milk? That's why you're all fat bastards, because that's to make baby calves into cows. And cacao is cleaning, cleansing, and purifying the capillaries and the arteries around your heart. So it's like, why would you put them two things together? You never would. So that's what we make into a drink. Our signature blend is a little bit of agave, a little bit of coconut sugar, pinch of Himalayan salt, oat milk, boom, salted caramel. That's the most palatable we've found over the years.
Nice. Okay. If you were like, say, selling your cacao experience, what would somebody who was a novice to this, who's not heard it, what would they expect to gain
in a ceremony, in one of my ceremonies?
Yeah.
So I just use different techniques, but my main thing in one of my ceremonies is, in whatever way, wherever you are at on your path, to make you leave there inspired, upgraded, and committed to taking positive action to get yourself to that higher state. Yeah. And I do this by spoken word poetry. I do this by telling stories. I do this by Indian Sanskrit mantra. I play the harmonium. I do this by sound baths, gong baths. I do this by fucking destroying you and actually making you want to leave because you can't handle the shit that I'm saying. Yeah, because I'm very, very fucking strong in what I teach and what I do. And a lot of people walk out, it's like they're not ready for it. And actually, if they would have stayed, by the end of it, they'd be singing and dancing with everybody, going, that was fucking amazing. I hated you at first, but I'm so glad that I stayed. And I'm like, good. Yeah, because I'm not here to give it you easy. I'm here to make you transform. And sometimes we need a kick up the arse to do that. Yeah. And that's just the way I teach. Not for everybody. Yeah, it's not going to work for everybody. But I assure you, people that usually leave and think I'm a dickhead come back 3 years later and say, what you told me was right.
So these ceremonies, Liam, are these something that you hold regularly?
Yeah, I hold them. So usually once a month in Manchester. I used to hold 2 a month, but as we've got bigger and selling them out more, and as I've got busier, you know, I'm doing a lot of trade shows, a lot of festivals and stuff now. We just try and do 1 a month in Manchester, and now we're moved to Southwest Wales. We're still going to try and do 1 a month in Manchester. Yeah, because that's our bread and butter, and that's where we've got the biggest amount of following. And you know, people, you know, like Catherine, who I was talking about before, the psychic. She's now, you can't book in with her for 6 months. She's a very, very highly regarded psychic in the UK, globally, and actually, all the people who come and visit her in a physical way, she says, "Oh, you should go to one of Liam's cacao ceremonies." So we've got a little kind of mafia spiritual cacao racket going on.
Oh,
I think you're on one of the events that I think the I Am Andy Barlow's event that's coming up. I think you're at the Haydock. Yeah, so we'll see you there. I think you're doing something there, aren't you?
And what we'll do as well,
stall,
underneath this podcast, we'll put all the information there for people who you know, who would interested in coming to one of these events and meet, you know, that kind of stuff.
And the
next one in Manchester's 22nd of April. There's still a few tickets left for that, but that's like there's like 100 people come to those ones.
Right. And can people buy your blends on your website or anything like that?
No, we just sell the raw product, and we give people, there's a recipes section on our website where people can just make make that themselves.
So
Yeah.
if we point people as well to your website, they'll be able to buy and get all the information they need.
Yeah,
there.
totally. And if they use the code Full Power 2012, that'll get them 20% off their first order.
Fantastic. Right. So we'll make sure that's done as well.
Yeah, we'll do.
So that was very much your start of your whole cacao journey. Would you say that's the main driving thing in your life at the moment? Is that at the center?
Definitely now, yeah. But until 2020, it was just I had all these million things going on, and I was just like, when they all going to come together? And then, as the Cacao Ceremonies like just exploded, I realized it all came together. So another pivotal part was when I basically finished writing that book about 2014.
Yeah.
And then it was sat on my laptop for 5 years, and I was like, tried to get a publisher a couple of times, and little bits. And there was a big part of me that was like you were talking about before. It's like, I'm not good enough. Who am I to write a book? I'm dyslexic. It's going to get ridiculed. Blah de blah. All this negative chat that you have in your head. But then in my head, I'd always had moments where God had said, if you do this, some shit's going to happen. So in the back of my head, I had, if you publish this book, things are going to start falling into place. But it took me 5 years. And then I'd had a little bit of a wobble, gone to Australia, thought I was leaving Manchester. I'm done. Went to Australia. And then over there, I was like, right, I've got to publish this book, however I do it. And then I sort of started editing it a bit more, ended up back in the UK, went to France to stay with a friend, and I was like staying in this little caravan by this river, and I just went, right, I've got to self-publish. Let's commit to that. Yeah, let's just fucking do it. Let's put all my energy, everything I've got into self-publishing this book, not seeing people, not going out, not, just 100% focus on this, and we should get it done in a few months, and then I can start being out there again. And when I said that, and then I went on my laptop and just found a 46-step guide to self-publishing your own book, and just followed it, was listening to podcasts while I was painting and decorating, just totally focused on this thing for that period of time. And then once I published it, I was just like, oh, right, thank fuck. And I'd spent all my money. I had a little bit, from painting and decorating, but everything I'd earned in Australia, I'd kind of spent on getting this book sorted. I was dealing with a woman who was working for me in Australia, like proofreading it. Another woman who was editing in India. I had this book designer in Argentina. So I was kind of up from 6 o'clock in the morning and not going to bed till 2, working on this thing with these different people from different parts of the world that were awake at different times. And then, then published it, and just felt like a massive weight off my shoulder. But then again, you just kind of like, okay, are people going to realize I'm fucking amazing yet? And this book's fucking amazing yet? Or what's going to happen? And I remember I started a podcast then, Dealer to Healer podcast, which was partly to promote the book. And then I had a mate that had gone to school with in Barcelona, and he said, oh, come out here for a bit. So I went out, was doing some podcasts with some cool people that I met and shit. And I remember we're supposed to be doing some building work, and then this work had fell through, and I had £0 to my name. This is the first time in my life I hadn't had any money, like 0. And I was eating in a Sikh temple, and I was like, right, my spiritual health's good, my mental health's good, my physical health's good. I've got great friends. My life's pretty good. I've got no fucking money. I'm not abundant. If I want to be a man and a leader, surely this is a part of that power. So I started going to this Sikh temple and eating for free and going, right, I need to sort this shit out. Let's focus. Whatever I focus on, I can achieve. Yeah, let's focus on wealth. Let's focus on abundance. Let's focus on money. Yeah, it's just a fucking energy. Let's focus on it. I've never focused on it before. Yeah, I'd always thought it was bad and that it fucked people over, and you were a bit of a poser if you had loads of it. And I just started reading about it, and then ended up reading some of the most spiritual books that I'd ever read about money, about about being rich. And that was the start of it. And here I am 2 and a bit years later with amazing wealth and abundance around me. And in 2 and a bit years, man, it's like fucking crazy.
And a lot of people, Liam, will resonate with that, because it's definitely the one area of life, especially spiritual people, that they struggle with for whatever reason. Probably just because you just mentioned it yourself. Then part of you was thinking, "Oh, money's the root of all evil. Money's bad. Money's these other." And that back in the day, that would have been your blockage why it wasn't flowing to you.
Yeah, and it's a bullshit excuse for staying small as well, which is what I now realise.
And again, go on.
Yeah. No, there's no reason for any of us to not be abundant.
No,
you know, there's enough. There's the other thing of like, oh well, if I'm a billionaire, then I'm going to be taking off other people. No, there's infinite. The universe is infinite. There's infinite resources. There's infinite abundance. You ain't stealing from anybody. You being a billionaire's showing other people that they can be a billionaire.
Yeah, exactly. and the truth is, Ian, what people will be able to see is, because you could have two people who are billionaires, and you could have one person who keeps it all for themselves and never does anything with it, and then there's the person who does good with it, who can do and reach out and help other people. So, but ultimately, and this is what the reason why I built the platform Drake, Michigan, and everything else, because 15 years ago, when all the spiritual stuff was happening to myself.
Yeah,
the platform I had back then, I was poverty stricken. I never had a pot to piss in. I never had a penny in my pocket, and I refused. And I said openly to Spirit, to the unit, I'm not doing it from this angle, because it just didn't resonate with me, right? But first of all, you're putting yourself in a situation where it's easy for everyone to shoot you down. They think you're only doing it for a bit of money in your pocket and preying on the vulnerable and all these kind of things that comes with it. So what I did was I ended up coming away from it all for well over 10 years.
Yeah.
And I basically said to the universe, look, you build me the platform, I'll shout it from the fucking rooftops. I'll tell everybody about God, Jesus, fucking the angels, everything. But give me the platform.
Yeah,
and then lo and behold, it's funny how little stories relate, because I can look back now, and what happened is a friend I had at the time, one day I was down on my luck, not long had broke my back, and everything, the universe was making sure I wasn't going to go back to a 9-to-5 job kind of thing. And a friend said to me, give me a lift decorating someone's house. And I was a bit handy with paint and decorating and all this kind of stuff. And I got him to borrow me a tenner to buy a paint tray and a roller from B&M Bargains and all this shite. And then, but that was the beginning of me not noticing, but that was the beginning of the universe saying, right, Kev, this is the path. Yeah. And then one thing led to another. And before you know it, doors just keep opening. And at the time, I'd been doing The Secret, I'd been doing manifestation, but I'd decided, a bit like you had with your book, I decided back in 2015, 2016, I'm going to commit to it. I'm going to fucking do it. I'd always told everybody else, but I never did it myself. So I decided, right, I'm going to do this and see if there's any fucking truth in it. And then one thing led to another, and doors just started opening. And then, we fast forward now to 2023. We're building a £3 million tower block in Blackpool on the beachfront. We've got men working everywhere. We've got electricians, we've got plumbers, we've got plasterers. We've got a window and door company. We've got an estimating company. So now what happened is the platform. So a little thing was in my head, and it said, well, you've been given the opportunity now, Kev. There's no excuse for you not to build the platform. So I got on the phone to Anthony about 6-7 months ago, and I said, listen, we've not seen each other for a few years. I've got a few things to tell you. So I told him the story, and he was like over the moon. He was like, Kev, fuck, because he knew where I was and where I'd been in my journey.
And
I said, look, I always promised everybody, if I'm given the platform, I'll fucking shout it from the rooftops. And that's how Drake, Michigan was born. because the whole Drake Michigan platform is so everybody who's in these circles can come onto podcasts, come on and show their skills and, you know, and showcase their talents and whatever. And that's all it is. It's just basically a massive platform for everybody.
Amazing.
And that's how it's all come about. It's not come about because of any reason. And don't get me wrong, I think it'll grow into whatever it needs to grow into. I'll
tell you one thing though, bro. Like, listening to that story, if you wouldn't have done this, I got a feeling your empire would have fucking crumbled.
Well, and that's
because that's where when people forget the purpose of the mission, the universe eventually goes, well, fuck you then.
Well, and it's funny you should say that, because obviously I come from a similar background to yourself, back in the Midlands, very, you know, poverty, abuse and all the rest of it, blah, blah, blah. So when I got to 18, 19, I was obviously on that mission of, I wanted stuff what I never had as a child. I wanted the financial, I wanted the car, I wanted the house, I wanted all the materialistic. Yeah. So I by the time I was 24, 25, I was a millionaire on paper. I had several bakeries. I had 25 people working for me. And I was probably thinking, I am the fucking big cheese here. I'm doing all right for myself, you know.
Yeah.
But I also know at that time, I don't ever remember being happy.
Yeah.
I'd chased all this materialistic stuff, what I never had as a kid, which I now had as an adult, but it never really made me happy. And then it's almost like the universe come and give me a massive kick up the arse then when I was 28, 29. And I actually lost my empire, because that was my little empire of baking. Yeah. And I remember a psychic or a medium back in the day saying to me, your empire will crumble. And that's exactly what happened. But the truth is, obviously, at the time, the pain of losing everything, you can't see any future, can you?
No.
But it's only now when I can fast forward 15 years and I can say, losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me. And that, you know, going on this spiritual path. But now it's important for me that now I've been given this, the abundance or the financial opportunity. I have to do the Drake Michigan platform. I have to tell everybody else how important it is.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
Gone off track a little bit, but
good work, man. Good work.
We'll see where it all leads. But
I think that's where, you know, with all my teachings and the yogic philosophy and stuff, it's also like having that confidence, especially now. It's like having that confidence. It's like, if something happens in the world that's out, you know, I always recite the Serenity Prayer. If something happens in the world that's out of my control, that removes everything that I've got from me, it doesn't matter, because I can build whatever I want again. Do you know what I mean?
And to be fair, that's a good thing. When you have lost everything and you've built it, you've got the skills. Then you know you can do it again.
Exactly. That's why so many people build empires, lose empires over and over again.
Yeah, your biggest lessons in life will become in your darkest days and in the midst of what appears to be failure. That's where the biggest teachings come, I always found.
That's what David Icke says. Your biggest blessings are usually disguised as your worst nightmares. Actually, I think that might be Ram Dass. One of them.
Sure. I can speak from my own personal experiences. Yeah, I can agree with that 100%. So if we just go back then, so obviously, because you know we've pushed, we want people to understand about your book, and we've talked about the cacao. When did you go off to did you say you went to the Amazon rainforest?
I went to Peru to do ayahuasca during that trip.
Yeah.
In 2000, I think I was there in 2013.
And that's when you did all, because I know you just said before. I just want to, in your book, you said you've got some little stories. I want to know if you want to just share a little story from the forest there.
So there's a massive part of my book that's to do with the ayahuasca. But yeah, it was really magical, because when I was in Belize, right at the start of that trip, I met this French couple, and they said, because I was thinking I'm going to have to find a really good ayahuasquero shaman to do it with, because I don't want to, drink it with. There's a lot of people ripping you off. There's, if you're living in them areas, the best job you can be is a shaman because you've got all these Westerners now coming over. But then that throws up the fact that you've got a load of people that aren't authentic as well. So I was like, met these girls, met this couple. They said they've got a friend, a French friend who's been living in Iquitos, and Iquitos is like the world HQ for ayahuasca. And they said he's a bit of a connoisseur and he would recommend this woman without a doubt before anyone else. She's really reasonably priced. You know, I think it cost me $400 for a week, and including 3 ceremonies, food, everything. Whereas other people, it was like $2,000, you know, for an experience. And so I went and met this French guy in this. Iquitos is I think it's the only city in the world that you can't get to by car. You have to either fly there or get a boat. And I flew into there because the boats, it was like, it's a 4-day boat ride, but it could take 15 days depending on what the rivers, what the Amazon's saying, what's going on. So I flew in there, and he was like, you know, monkeys riding on the back of dogs, and restaurants you went in all had the ayahuasca menu because that was the HQ of it. And ended up meeting this lady Ottilia. And one of the funniest things was when she come and met me in the city and took me back to her place, which was like kilometer 51 between Iquitos and Nakula. And when we got off the bus, she just went, "Senor, this way." And I was like, she's like pushing me away. And I was just like, go. And I was like, why is she staying? And I'm walking. Like, what's she doing? What's going on here? So just basically off this little road, I just walking into the jungle. And I'm like, is this some sort of fucking test or something? I don't know what's going on. Don't know what house is there. And anyway, after about half an hour walking into the jungle, I come to this opening, and this guy in a boiler suit comes and greets me. And there's like this big cabin, and then there's all these little cabins off it. And then 20 minutes later, she turns up. There's only someone's come to meet her to carry her shopping bags. I just didn't know what was going on because I don't speak any Spanish. But yeah, and then another. So obviously, she's just this little old grandma, and she's sat in a porch in a main room on this rocking chair, just doing some sewing. And I've come in, and she's like, you know, "Senor, just like, you know, make yourself at home, sit down on the floor, whatever." And then I've gone in a bookcase, and there's like these books all over, and this fucking Gok Wan's autobiography in this little lady's in the middle of the fucking jungle. So I started reading Gok Wan's autobiography just because I thought this is fucking hilarious. And anyway, just looking at this old grandma reading Gok Wan and going, she's going to administer me the most powerful psychedelic in the world a few times over the next week. How crazy is that? Just this little grandma, her grandkids had come in running about, her daughter. I was like, it's pretty surreal, isn't it? And then, then that evening, we wasn't supposed to be drinking ayahuasca. It was just like, chill out. They'd give me this thing called ahasacha to drink, yeah? And I was like, you know, plantas, senor plantas, no idea what it is. Plantas just is their word for plants. And I'm on a plant medicine diet the whole time I'm there. And gives me this drink. And then I'm just like, wow, I feel just in the hammock. And I've been in the hammock for like 5 hours, super chilled out. And it gets to the evening, and I'm just doing a little bit of writing in my cabin. And this geezer comes and knocks on my door. He goes, "Hello, are you Liam?" I was like, "Yeah." He went, I can't remember what his name was, but he went, "Oh, we're here to do ayahuasca tonight, and Ottilia wants to know if you'd like to join us." I'm like, "Well, that's the fucking reason I'm here. Of course I want to." So he's like, "Right, you need to take a flower petal bath." So I then go down, and there's this bath like dug into the ground with all these beautiful flower petals on it. And I go in there, and it's like a cleanse. Beautiful, like, you know, looking into the jungle, the stars. It's fucking incredible. I was like, this is like a cross between a luxury health spa and a crack den. And it was just amazing. And then we went and did the ayahuasca, and then it was pretty. That first one was pretty mild, and everyone was vomiting and stuff, and it was beautiful. But then the geezers told me the next day, he said, the thing that you've taken is called ahasacha, which is from a plant. And it's ahasacha means garlic-like, because it tasted of garlic. I was like, oh, they've given me garlic. And he's like, no, it's just a plant that tastes like garlic, but it's a sedative. So they want you to be as relaxed as you possibly can be. I wondered what was going on. I've never just lay in a hammock for 5 hours before chilling. Do you know what I mean? I thought, oh, it was from that big journey that I've had here, the 51 kilometers in a bus, which is nothing. It was an hour.
Oh man. You know what, Liam, you've had an amazing journey. Do you not think sometimes that this is just the beginning now as well? You've had all this to say, but this is like, and I just feel that this is just the beginning for you as well. There's so much more to come.
Yeah, well, I think so. I think especially now with the Full Power Cacao thing and the Stone Cold Sober events and how kind of like big that's all getting. And you know, like you said, there's all these people now that have woke up looking for somewhere to go, and you've been doing this for 11 years, and it's like, oh, what? This existed before I woke up. Like me, it existed before I woke up. These people have been doing this, you know, the witches, women have been leading this for fucking thousands of years. And it's now time for the divine masculine to come in and start supporting them, really. And I think with the Full Power Cacao, the Stone Cold Sober, the festival, boys, my mission is, and has been for a long time, is to create vegan off-grid communities. Vegan yogic off-grid communities where we live by yogic principle. It's vegan and we're living off-grid. So everything that I've done over the years is kind of comes together in that marriage of those things. And for years I thought, oh, I'll meet some billionaire and they'll believe in me and want to fund it. But now I'm like, Full Power Cacao's going to fund this. And it's creating a foundation for like-minded people to come and live, and also creating an example of how you can achieve things by taking action and fucking working hard, man. I work hard, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
A lot of people would, you know, I think we all are guilty of thinking like, oh, if someone just come in or I won the lottery or give me a chunk of money, I could. But the thing is, this is where we talk about, then you wouldn't have had the journey. Then you wouldn't have had all the experiences. Then you wouldn't have had, because we've said this, like even with every project I've ever done. So it's like, if you just got the end result straight away, then what would be the point? You know, you have to enjoy all these amazing experiences, even the negatives and the upset, because there would have been times where you thought, you know, I can't fucking do this anymore. You're banging your head against the wall. Nothing seems to be happening. And then suddenly it all starts making sense. And then you understand it more. So, and I think afterwards we can look back and we can say, you know, I'm so glad I went through all those experiences because it's made me who I am.
And what you have in the spiritual communities, you have a lot of snowflakes, and being from the backgrounds we've got and being around working class and grafters, we're not snowflakes. It's like, if I need to do a 20-hour day, I'll do it because it's necessary. Where it's like, oh, the energy's not quite right today. We need to have a rest day. And it's like, well, actually, that product needs to get out there today. And if it doesn't, it's going to have a cataclysmic effect on the business. And I need to do that today, even though I might not be up for it. I might not be feeling it. It's like you might not be feeling fucking changing your baby's nappy, but you're going to get the fucker taken off you if you don't change it. You know what I mean? It's like some things you've got to blast through. And there's also what the universe does and what God does when you're doing something, it puts a challenge in to go, do you really want this? And that's where you have to step up and go, you've got to go through a little bit of discomfort to get to the thing. And a lot of people just want to go, I'm just going to manifest my dream life, but I'm not going to take any fucking action. Do you know what you're going to do? You're going to be sat exactly where you fucking sat now.
No, 100%.
That's the infiltration of the New Age movement, though, isn't it? Where people think, that, you know, they make people think that you can just sit back and dream this new world for you, and it doesn't work. You need action. You've got to step in. And
I you know, I can vouch 100% for that, because back in 2008, 2009, Liam, when I had my first spiritual experiences, I thought, because I was so excited, and when it was happening, I thought that was going to save all my businesses. I was that man just sat on a couch going, I found fucking God. Everything's going to be all right now. Oh my God, was I so wrong? I fucking lost everything. And then I lost even more. And then it got even worse and worse and worse. And then it was like, you know, have you lost enough now? Right. And then it's like, now get off your arse and do some fucking work. And so it's like, it doesn't. And so like when you have to do them 20-hour fucking days and all the rest of it, but God and the universe recognizes that energy, what you're putting
100%.
in.
Yeah, and you know, there's a famous, like, I think it's a Buddhist or a monk quote, and it says, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And snowflakes, they don't want to chop wood and carry water.
No.
And some of them slag me off. Oh, Liam's about selling stuff. And it's actually, when I make a sale, when someone buys something or pays for a service from me, right? My whole ethos is that they're going to be getting at least 7 times the value of what they're monetary handing over to me, yeah? I've had people come to my ceremonies, 40 quid, 44 quid max, and they've said, you've changed my life, yeah? What would that be worth to you financially? I'd pay, if my life was fucked, I'd pay 5 grand for it to be changed positively, at least. And I'd give them that for 40 quid. And also, people, snowflakes will say to me, Liam's about the sales. It's like, yeah, but the quality of what I'm giving is far outweighs the value of what someone's giving me. And if they're not quite ready, because people have said, oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And it's like, right, if you write me a letter and tell me that you can't afford it, I'll consider it. But there needs to be an energy exchange.
And it does,
maybe you come and volunteer before a ceremony or something. Do you know what I mean?
People are quick to judge as well.
Liam. And the thing is, Liam, people who have got any life experience and understand, they wouldn't even question or think like that. And also, because how can you even start to put a price on your experiences, what you've been through? Do you know what I mean? I mean, I'm just listening to your stories of going out to these places, and I've never enjoyed that kind of experiences in my life to date as much as I'd love to. So I'm just in awe listening to those stories, and I just find it wow. You know, I mean, I did the traditional met a partner, I've been together for the last 26 years, fucking all that shite. Do you know what I mean? So I never got to do all the backpacking and shagging and enjoying myself. I never got to have the good life.
But do you know what? It's funny because when I was like growing up and wanting to go traveling when I was at uni and stuff, it was like, oh, I'll go to South America, I'll do the best cocaine ever. And when I got there, I was on this spiritual thing. I was like, I'm fucking not touching anything. I don't want to. I was not in that place. Whereas my dream through my drug days had always been go to Colombia, snort some proper cocaine.
The proper stuff. Can I just come back to your Stone Cold? Is it Stone Cold Sober events? What are those, Liam?
Right. So when I told you about that sort of commitment to abundance in 2019. And then, well, it was the end of 2019. It was New Year's Eve, actually. And then the start of 2020, it was like, right, what's going to happen now? And I'd started doing this thing called yoga rave, where I'd teach a yoga rave. It was like yoga with a live DJ. And it was the first time where I did something. I was like, fuck, people are absolutely tripping off this. It's like I've given them ecstasy, but by dance music and yoga and breath work. And it was like, and I was filling spaces like, and I was like, right, I need someone to support me with this. And I spoke to my friend, and I was just telling her about that I couldn't do it myself because my organization's not that good, and that kind of marketing in the, Facebook and getting the people into the venues, I just wasn't my thing. And she said, I'll help you. And I was like, oh, okay. And then we put on this yoga rave, and we decided we'd call ourselves Stone Cold Sober. And we were going to go and find venues all over the country. And I was going to be like a rock star yoga teacher with a live DJ on tour with me. And then obviously when that fake virus came into play and everyone was being a shithouse and not opening the venues, that kind of put an end to that little dream. But it didn't get disheartened. I was like, it's cool. We just crack on with something else. So I started doing... During the lockdown, I started doing a yoga rave every Sunday in my front room, and my brother was living with me, so he was DJing. Yeah, and these were getting like 4,000 people doing them. all over the world. And then I also started doing this every night, because I was still going all over the country. I was going everywhere. I fucking loved the lockdown. If you could say to me, how would you like the world? I'd like, lock all those fuckers down again, because that was brilliant. I could drive everywhere I wanted, could get everywhere dead quick. I could have a girlfriend out of an 8-kilometer radius because it was easier to get to her. So, do you know what I mean? It was like, I fucking loved it. I was in the Lake District. I was swimming in lakes. There was no one about anywhere. It was mint. And I started doing this thing called 2-banger dance party. And I was like, I'll do this for 3 weeks until this thing's ended, which was obviously bullshit. 3 weeks to fatten the curve. I ended up doing 88 shows consecutively, 2-banger dance parties every night, 6 p.m. And it would ended up being like 3 or 4 tracks, and I'd be on a beach, I'd be by a lake, I'd be all over the country doing these things. I pretend that I was green screened, and I had this team that, you know, that were putting me in different locations. Just for the 3D people. But then since I did that, the last couple of years, people come up to me and they go, "You're Liam," and I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "That 2-banger dance party that you did in lockdown just kept me going. Thank you so much." And I'm like, "All right, cool, that's awesome." So you know, these things. And then, because I never stopped teaching yoga, I was like, how can I stop teaching yoga? It's a spiritual practice. It's what people's mental health requires. So I had a couple of venues that allowed me to teach there, and just had a private group and was continually teaching yoga to a select few, and then other people would hear about it, and then they were like, "We want a yoga retreat," and I was like, "Okay, do a yoga retreat." And Stone Cold Sober, we did it under that umbrella, and my business partner Joanna helped us put it on. And I had a friend with a place in the Lake District, and he wasn't asked about he knew it was all bollocks. And we did a yoga retreat for that November, and I think it was that November where they went hardcore on, you can't go anywhere, yeah. And they said this was from the Friday. No, they said this on the Wednesday, and our retreat started on the Friday, and it went from having 12 people booked on to 6 people dropped out. And we said, you can't have your deposit back. You've got to be committed if you're going to do this. And people dropped out because their asses fell out. And then my business partner was like, what are we going to do? Like, we're going to lose money. And I was like, kind of got into the energy a bit. And then I spoke to my mate, and he was like, this is where the universe asks you, do you stand by what you believe in? And when he said that, I was like, right, Ranga, we're good. We're going to go. Let's find some people. Started messaging some people, filled up all the places, made more money than we would have made because the people dropped out. We kept the deposits. So it actually ended up being amazing. But, people were saying, you can't drive there, you're going to get stopped. And we just had all these little foolproof things of if people got stopped, which nobody did because it was all fucking fear-mongering. And if you got stopped, you attracted that energy in. It's like if you're in your power and you're confident, you're going to be sweet. And we were sweet. And that's when we started to keep putting yoga retreats on pretty regularly, and that was the start of the business. And then throughout that, I kept getting booked to go and do festivals, like to teach yoga at festivals, to do cacao ceremonies at festivals. And then these festivals kept getting cancelled, and I was like, fucking shit. And then we kept going to like sacred sites for equinoxes and solstices, and just going, why is there so many dickheads here drinking and getting fucked, and they don't know why they're here? And it's kind of decimating these sacred sites. So I was like to my business partner, I was like, fuck it. I went, we're going to put on a yoga festival for the summer solstice. And we're going to find a place where it doesn't matter what the dickheads who went to eat and say, it's happening. Yeah. So we did that. And then we put on our first festival last year, and 2 days into the festival, it became a utopia. We'd got everyone to drop their shit through the workshops, through the practices, through the yoga, through the music, and everything that we do, because mine and my business partner's background is going to raves, is partying, do you know what I mean, is electronic music. So electronic music is a massive part of the whole experience. There's live DJ sets, there's ecstatic dances. Can I have a brew, please? Thank you. there's ecstatic dances, there's cold water therapy, there's yoga classes, there's workshops. So 2 days into that, everybody's dropped the bullshit. Everybody's glowing. And I was crying my eyes out the whole of that 3rd day because I was like, wow, we've created something. People were like, this is how life should be. And I'm like, yeah, it should. And we're going to make that happen every day.
Yeah,
but just wait, I'm on the mission.
Good for you, mate.
Fucking
Good
hell.
for you.
So you've definitely got you've got a few things, going at the same time. Yeah, you've got your hands full, if you like. So are you still pretty much doing the yoga as well? Are people still getting lessons with you and that kind of stuff, or are you too busy?
Do you know what, mate? I'm not. I was teaching once a week in Manchester, but like I always say, even when I'm at a yoga festival, because people think yoga is you stretching your class. Yoga's a scientifically proven method to self-realization and enlightenment. Yeah. And as a yoga teacher, that is what I am focusing on, propelling people to self-realization and enlightenment. And the best tool I have for that is a cacao ceremony. So as a yoga teacher, the best yoga class I do is a cacao ceremony, because I see instant transformation in people. Whereas when I'm teaching asana practice, they might not get it, they might not understand the philosophy, they might want to come to the class but not want to listen to what I'm saying. Yeah. Whereas cacao ceremony, I have this instant, it is, as a yoga teacher, it's the most important thing I do.
Unbelievable.
Superb.
So just so people know, so in your diary at the moment, Liam, so the next thing coming up, did you say the 22nd of April was your next ceremony?
Yeah, so the 22nd of April is the next ceremony. We've not even got onto the next bit, but I now train people to facilitate cacao ceremonies with my partner, Paulina, who's my romantic partner, who I've been with for a couple of years, who's the most amazing human being I've ever met, and the most powerful healer that I've ever met. And I've met a lot all over the world. And she just lived down the road from me in a council estate in Northington. And now, since we've got together, she is smashing everything out of the park. She's the healer of healers in the UK. And she's done that super quickly because she already had the skills. She just didn't have the confidence and the self-belief and power to do it. And I've given her that rocket up her ass. So we do a facilitator training together. That's for Full Power Cacao. That's the 15th to the 19th of May. And we've got people who've graduated from all over the world now. It's fucking incredible. I think we've got 2 places left on that one. And then the Stone Cold Sober Festival is like anybody who's into anything spiritual or yogic or just, people came last year and they went, I decided that I was going to come to your festival as my last hope of not committing suicide. And some of them now work for me.
Oh, tremendous.
I've done my cacao teacher training. I've been like transformed from this moment. And, people message me now and say, I'm still buzzing from your festival last year. I'm like, fuck, I should have charged you more than that then, because that's like hundreds of £1,000s worth of transformation, of positivity. But they're saying it's just bread, and the fact that I'm like, you need to do yoga every day, you need to meditate every day, you need to drink cacao every day, and this will continue. This amazingness will continue. So the Stone Cold Sober Festival is from the 17th to the 22nd of June for the summer solstice. Yeah, so we do a big shamanic ceremony on the 21st, and we did it last year. It was fucking incredible. And it's in a place called, I think it's called Sowerburyworth, which is in Hertfordshire. It's kind of near Harlow. It's on the Hertfordshire-Essex border. Amazing site. There's glamping. You can bring your own tent. You can bring your own camper van, whatever you want. The tickets are on stonecoldsoberevents.com.
I know some of the people that's on your list there as well, because I had a pub in Croston during the shit show when I stayed open. So there's a guy, I can't remember his name. Yeah, Paris. It was a special time. Paris, he came and DJ'd at the pub a couple of times.
Wild Calm, Lisa?
I'm not sure, but Juliet came. Juliet Bryant, she did. We had a big event. It was our last event before I closed the doors because I ran out of money. Right. Because the village kind of just disowned me, so I had no regulars, So we shut the weekend after Juliet came. We had a big event. We had Mark Devlin there and a number of people, and it was like mega good.
Awesome.
Right? But when we're talking about doing things on our path and what's meant to be, that was a pure guided moment for me and my family being at that pub. We signed for that pub the day they shut the pubs. And we played the game for a little bit to try and, because we didn't know how long the bullshit was going to be. And then as soon as they started, like you said, in the November, really taking the piss, then we stood in our power. And the village disowned us, but we created a community. People come from fucking miles, and it was beautiful.
Brilliant.
It was a great time, marvelous time.
Was amazing. That's what I say to everybody. If that age wasn't the best time of your life, then you wasn't awake.
Crazy time, crazy.
Right, I think Liam, first of all, I think we need to go back to the little boy that you was on that council estate when you're in Manchester. And that feeling of one day there's got to be more to this, and that feeling of, you know, being a little bit special. And then all these years later now, it seems to me like you're really starting to shine and be your true essence and light. And I think you know, I think we'll probably hear a lot more of you. It sounds like you're on the path to doing some really greatness. And all credit to you. What an amazing story so far, and you've got so much to share as well.
Yeah, man, and just excited for everything that's gonna happen. Excited for everything that's gonna happen with the people that I work with, people like yourselves, and what you're doing, because you know all the teachers that that I know are awake and like yourselves, we've all said it. We're not even touching the surface yet. We've all expanded vastly in the last 2 years. It's what you've kind of always been waiting for, this explosion. It's like, you know, more people have woke up in the last 2.5 years than ever in the history of humanity before, which is a beautiful thing. And why? Because of the bullshit. So the bullshit's a blessing. Yeah. And you know, me and my mates were just like, we ain't even scratched the surface yet. So it's like, hold your position, and keep doing what you're doing, and the universe will bless you.
It's the most amazing time to be alive.
100%.
I think what's happening, Liam, and what will happen, and it's funny because when I was about 18, I would have been about 18. Some local fairground lad who I knew, he decided to throw some LSD down our throats. So we did it for a laugh, and. But during that night, it was a horrible experience for me at the time. But basically, what happened is the sky lit up in a massive cobweb. But what it left me was a feeling of like what's happening now is we're all these little communities popping up, and we're all part of a web. And some way or another, we're all going to connect and join up, just like a massive web. And at somewhere along the right line, whether it's this week, next year, whatever, everybody will be able to help everybody else. You know, so this community will be able to help that community to help that community. And totally. just like a spider's web, I think it's all connected, it's all intertwined, it's all part of the bigger plan, the universal, you know, whatever's coming.
Well, it's energetic. It's energetic roots and like mycelium systems. Like we think that just happens under the earth, but what's going on just in this space now, I'm seeing 0.05% of what's going on. So we're making energetic vibrational connections to yourself, to other people, to people that will watch the podcast. So there's just so much more going on. Like we say about the people you meet 10 years ago, and then you go, oh, they ended up being pivotal in what I'm doing now. And it's like, it doesn't sort of, you don't acknowledge it at the time, but you've got to just realize that we're always planting seeds and we're always planting these connections. And it's fucking, imagine if you could start seeing everything that you were doing, and it's
quickly on that
vastness.
Because just lately, and you might have found this as well. So just lately, we're starting to speak to people, or we're having guests come into the studio or whatever. And these people are mentioning names of people who I knew 15 years ago, who were waking. And you're like, of all the people in all the world, like, how are these people coming back into my life? It's just like, what the fuck's happening? And it's just, and you probably experienced this yourself, but what it is, it's all starting to make sense. It's all just starting to fit into place, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're at this midway point. Like the cosmic moment was 2012. You know, we've just done 2022. And 2032 supposed, you know, is the crossover into full 5D unity consciousness on the planet. So it's like, either get yourself ready or get yourself ready for another 10,000 years in purgatory on another planet, because you won't be welcome here.
Yeah, the shift is happening. The shift is happening. People need to do the work, don't they?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. That's what I always harp on about. It's like, yeah, come and feel amazing, but you'll go back to where you was if you don't do the work every day.
You got to do it.
Liam, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I'm really, really grateful to meet you and hear about your story. And I'm going to be keeping an eye out for all your events and what's going on. And obviously, I'm going to tell everyone about you.
Yeah, and if you guys send me a message as well, I'll send you both a copy of the book. That's cool. And whatever other paraphernalia I've got going. Yeah. Some cacao as well. I'll send you some cacao.
Do you know what? You're a gent. I'll appreciate that with blessings. Thanks very much.
It'll be the first time you'll ever tried cacao, won't it?
Yeah, it's all new to me, so I'm looking forward to that. I might get myself on one of your ceremonies.
Yeah.
Come. There's space on that 22nd, and then also, we'll see. We'll make you the best cacao on the planet if I see you both at Andy Barlow's event.
Love it.
Liam, have a fantastic rest of the week, whatever it is you're doing, and that's
blessings, boys. Keep doing what you're doing. Love you.
Take care.
Take care, Liam. Thanks,
Take it easy, boys. Ta-da.
Bye-bye.